Alright, this is an example of a 30, 60, 90 triangle, and it says to determine x and y. Now, looking at our picture, and I will say that the picture is not drawn the best, but looking at the picture, we're not given just a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So let's talk about how we would figure out that we're going to use the rules for a 30, 60, 90 triangle when we're not given that in the picture. Now, we know that the bigger triangle is an equilateral triangle. We know it's equilateral because all the angles are marked congruent. We learned that if all the angles of a triangle are congruent, that means they're all 60. And if it's equiangular, which means all the angles are congruent, it's also equilateral. Now, we said that half of an equilateral triangle is going to be a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Since we have half of an equilateral triangle here, we're talking about the left-hand side, then we know we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, even though not all of the angles are marked. Okay? We know that this other side would be perpendicular, and then half of the angle up here would be 30. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just redraw the part of the triangle we need. We need this left-hand side, 90, 60, 30. This is 2. Y, and X. Now we need to figure out X and Y. Once we have our triangle here, we need to determine whether we're given the short side, the long side, or the hypotenuse. Short side is across from the 30, long side is across from the 60, and the hypotenuse is across from the 90. We are given the long side in this case, because it's across from the 60. Now, if we're given the long side, the first thing we need to do is determine the short side. And to get the short side, we take the long side and we divide it by root 3. And that'll give us the short side. The reason we have to figure the short side first is because to get the hypotenuse, we need to know the short side. Now, to get the hypotenuse, we take that short side and we multiply it by 2. And that'll give us our hypotenuse. Okay? So let's start. We're given the long side. Our long side is 2. We're finding x, which is our short side. So our 2, and we're going to divide that by the square root of 3. Now we can't leave our problem like this because we can't have a radical in the denominator, so we have to rationalize it. We're going to multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 3. 2 times the square root of 3 is 2 root 3. Square root 3 times square root 3 is really the square root of 9, but that is really 3. That won't simplify because 2 does not go into 3, so there's the answer to our short side. It's 2 square roots of 3 divided by 3. To get the hypotenuse now, which is y in this problem, we take the short side, which we just found, and we multiply it by 2. So 2 square roots of 3 over 3 times 2. Now that 2 gets multiplied to the number out in front of the radical. 2 times 2 is 4 square roots of 3 over 3. That 2 does not go to the denominator. It only goes to the numerator when we're multiplying fractions, because it's really 2 over 1. Okay, so it just goes to the numerator. That won't simplify, so there's the answer for our hypotenuse. Our hypotenuse ends up being 4 square roots of 3 divided by 3. Now, I will tell you that this particular example where we're given the short side is the hardest one to remember because you have to where we're given the long side, because you have to take the long side, get the short side, then you have to take the short side and get the hypotenuse. And you're dividing by a radical, which causes people some problems. So this is the hardest type of example. We're going to walk through it again. We're given the long side in this problem. To get the short side, take the long side and we divide it by 3, or root 3. And then that gives us the short side. When we have the short side, to get the hypotenuse, we take the short side times 2. Okay? I stumbled through that a little bit. I apologize. But if you follow those rules, you can go back and rewatch the big video, or you can rewatch this example again. If you follow those rules, that's the easiest way I can tell you how to solve this problem. If you have any questions, either go back and rewatch the video on 30, 60, 90 triangles, or rewatch this example or bring them to class next time.